We're back on Most Buffalo with more and more people falling behind on credit card debt. People under 35 are struggling the most to pay their bills right now. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, seriously overdue debt is at the highest level in more than a decade. That's when debt is more than 90 days overdue. So joining us now is Jacob Channel as senior economist with LendingTree, an online lending platform. Thanks for your time this afternoon, Jacob. We've covered many stories similar to this one in recent months, with more and more people having trouble to pay off their credit cards and battling high inflation. So can you explain just how we got to this point and why this new data is significant here?
Sure. So it's kind of two things. So first, you may or may not remember, but there was this global pandemic that happened a few years ago. And so what happened during that pandemic was things got a little crazy. People were cooped up in their homes. People weren't really able to spend money, even if they wanted to. And interest rates hit record lows. So once the doors opened back up and the pandemic kind of subsided, people started to venture out into the world again. They started to spend more money. You saw inflation start to increase. And at the same time, in order to combat that higher inflation, you started to see interest rates increase. So what we have now is this kind of storm where you have people who not only have to spend more money for the same goods, you have to deal with inflation, but they also have to contend with notably higher interest rates than they did just a few short years ago. Add those two things together, and yeah, you're probably going to get higher delinquency rates and other sort of financial difficulties that come along with having to spend more money on debt than before.
And we know that this is most affecting people 35 years old and under, having trouble paying off their credit cards every month. So why is this group struggling, and what is your best advice for them?
Sure. So I think a big reason why that group specifically is struggling is that they generally don't have as much earning, that they're not making as much money. They don't have as much saved up. So altogether, they just have less money that they can work with. And if you find yourself being caught up in a bunch of debt and you're not earning a particularly high income, or you don't have a lot of savings, then that debt can very quickly snowball and you can just end up in a situation where things get worse and worse. Fortunately, it's not the end of the world. It's worth pointing out that despite some economic headwinds, despite not everything being as, sunny as Buffalo's weather has been, there are, still silver linings. For example, inflation, while still high, is cooling. It seems like the rate at which it is growing has decreased. It's lower than it was last year. People are still working jobs. The unemployment rate is very low. So with that in mind, it's worth keeping in consideration that there are some positives. Now, in terms of what you should do if you personally have a lot of credit card debt, for example, I think the best thing to do first is to just sit down and budget. It's not the most glamorous thing in the world to do, but knowing exactly where you stand, figuring out, okay, here's how much money I'm bringing in every month, here's how much money I'm spending every month, here's how much debt I have, here's how much I have to spend on that debt. It's a really, really important first step. And from there, it's not fun, but you start cutting things back. You say, look, I really like eating out twice a week. Maybe I'm only going to eat out once every other week. And you have to start making some somewhat difficult decisions. And instead of spending money on things that you don't necessarily need, you'll put more money toward stuff like your credit card debt. And if you're diligent and you keep on keeping on, eventually that debt will go away. So again, keep in mind, not everything is terrible. And even if you are in a lot of debt, there are ways to climb out of that hole.
All right, Jacob Channel, senior economist with LendingTree. Thanks so much for joining us live with this advice today on Most Buffalo. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.